Today on This Week Health.
We have a long history of displacement with technology. We have a long history of disruption in different industries with technology, and some jobs we don't do anymore, and other ones we've started doing. And it's helping people see the fact that technology is not the enemy. Technology is an enabler to our creative capacities and is an enabler to our ability to deliver value.
Welcome to Newsday, a This Week Health newsroom show. My name is Bill Russell. I'm a former CIO for a 16-hospital system and creator of This Week Health, a set of channels dedicated to keeping health IT staff current and engaged. For 5 years, we've been making podcasts that amplify great thinking to propel healthcare forward. Special thanks to our Newsday show partners, Cedars-Sinai Accelerator, ClearSense, CrowdStrike, Digital Scientist, Optimum, Pure Storage, SureTest, Tausight, and VMware, for investing in our mission to develop the next generation of health leaders. Now, on to our show. All right, it's Newsday, and today we're joined by Curtis Hendrick, VP of Cloud Services, Optimum Health IT. Curtis, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate being here.
Wow. First time on the show. I'm looking forward to this conversation. Plus, coolest title in all of healthcare, I think, VP of Cloud Services. First of all, tell us a little bit about Optimum and then tell us about the role.
Yeah, absolutely. So Optimum's got a pretty simple mission, right? Our mission exists as to help healthcare organizations provide better patient care. They've done that over the last 10 years through staffing and EHR implementations and things like that. But more recently, there's a lot of work that we're doing in the IT space. So specifically cloud, cybersecurity, ServiceNow, digital transformation work, things like that. So we've gone from really just kind of that trusted advisor helping CIOs make decisions to actually really being an implementation partner almost across the entire stack, being able to help them out with almost anything that they need to get done. And then, so my role as the VP of Cloud Services is that, yeah, it is a really cool role. I said, got to give me a cool title if I'm going to come on board. So they definitely delivered there. But really, I mean, my whole focus is helping healthcare organizations figure out where is their value in cloud. There's a lot of noise around cloud, a lot of articles, a lot of people touting that they did certain things, but not all of them are actually driving value. Not all of them are actually delivering results for healthcare organizations. And so, I help CIOs and CTOs and payer organizations and healthcare provider organizations figure out where is the value for them in cloud, where is their opportunity, what should they be looking at, what should they be paying attention to? Because if they just listen to all the noise out there, it can be kind of daunting.
Wow. I'm looking at your LinkedIn profile. Looks like you have some certifications. By the way, I'm OS2 certified if you need any help there.
Oh, great. Great.
And you have the healthcare background. So UCI for a while, we probably overlapped. Let me see. Yeah, we probably overlapped when I was at St. Joe's. You were at UCI, and you were at UC San Diego and Chalk Children's.
Yeah. Spent about 18 years in healthcare IT. Kind of worked my way up from the very bottom, just a volunteer helping out deploy desktops all the way to kind of running IT. Held associate CTO roles, director of IT roles, things like that. But yeah, some fun times. It's been a cool story, cool journey.
All right, we've got, oh my gosh, there's so many stories right now. We're getting ready for conference season as well. So there's just story after story. Cloud services. I'll let you pick. Let me tell you the stories we have in front of us. ChatGPT listed as author on research papers many scientists disapprove. That's one story. Doctors, get ready for your AI assistants. This is Wired. Story number 2. Number 3, Microsoft invests billions in OpenAI. So we could probably link the first and third stories. Healthcare transformation, the value of partnerships. That's a McKinsey article, really good article. And then digital health 2023, cloud, human-centered design, and getting back to basics. So we'll play a little Jeopardy here. Which story would you like to start with?
I think if we start with ChatGPT, we may never leave ChatGPT. So let's maybe start on the digital health 2023, cloud, human-centered design, and getting back to the basics.
All right. We are going to hit on ChatGPT just because it's just a fun topic to talk about. Digital health 2023, cloud, human-centered design, getting back to basics. Marcus Perez, president of Altera Digital Health, offers some intriguing predictions for the year ahead. So you predict that cloud technology will drive improvements in patient care in 2023. Where and how? And so he has Let me see. Should I read some of his answer? I'm more curious to what you have to say, but I will read some. Cloud technologies offer hospitals and large physician practices the flexibility to access patient data when and where they need it. Some of this technology is already in place, as noted by the expansion of telemedicine. Now patients are used to remote care and receiving direct input on their health status from their clinicians in that manner. The number of physicians using telehealth grew. Massive growth demands that physicians have access to complete patient data. The next chapter, as we continue to transition to cloud supported EHR, will come down to timing. According to the BDO 2021 Healthcare Digital Transformation Survey, 78% of respondents said their organizations had deployed cloud technology, and 20% said they were planning to do so. Looking ahead to 23, the adoption of cloud computing will continue. There's tremendous value in improving wellness, reducing the cost of care, and ensuring patients' continuity of care. All right, so let's get back to the original question. Unless you want to comment on that specifically, how is cloud going to drive improvements in patient care in 2023 and beyond?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's where so many organizations are trying to figure out right now, right? Because as he notes in here, which I feel like this is where cutting through all of the noise is important, right? Because he's saying, oh, well, they want to be able to access anything from anywhere. Okay, we've been doing that for a while, right? We've had Citrix, we've had VDI, we've had the ability, mobile apps, we've had the ability for physicians and patients to be able to access their data outside of the walls of the hospital, right? But what's going to happen here, and there's kind of an interesting cycle, right? I kind of revert to this as this continuous cycle that we end up going through, where we will implement a new technology, right? Something that delivers value, right? Like an EHR, something like that delivers value. And then we go through this process of refinement of it, where it isn't as laborious anymore. It isn't as cumbersome anymore to run and operate. And that's where I think cloud is really becoming transformative in a lot of ways, because we're taking what was a technology that delivered value to a healthcare organization, solved a problem for them, and we're modernizing it. We're able to take it to cloud native constructs. We're able to get it out of the geographic location of a data center and able to put it in multiple regions. So it's a lot closer to the patient and customers where they are. We have the ability to allow the IT organization to focus on improving the application stack and the configuration and the experience for the customer, rather than everything that sits below it, right? So by allowing healthcare organizations to focus their attention to the top of the pyramid in terms of what delivers value, cloud is allowing all of those things kind of underneath, all those building blocks that are needed to get out of the way and allow healthcare organizations to focus on delivering that value. So I think in this year, we're very much in a refinement year in 2023. We've got a lot of technology we've implemented over the last several years due to COVID. And this is the year where we're going to start getting really efficient with that. And I think cloud plays a big part in that.
Yeah, I hate to use the A word, architecture, but cloud architecture is just better. It has the potential to be more secure. It has the potential to be more interoperable. It has the potential to be more extensible. You can automate on top of it because it's essentially a software architecture. It's a software stack.
Yep.
And so there's a whole host of things. As I just rattle those things off, yes, you can get closer to your patients. Yes, you can automate things. You can automate things on the IT side. You can have security constructs that we haven't traditionally had internally. One of the constructs that we had implemented in our cloud environment back in 2013 was essentially when a container would recognize activity that looked like it was hacking of some kind, it would just completely shut that container off. Not shut it off, it would completely kill that container. It didn't exist anymore, and it would spin up another one. And so the hackers would be like, they'd be attacking on this, it would disappear, then they'd have to attack over here, then it would disappear. And so they're just not going to go after that. It's just too hard for them. They haven't proven that they are persistent. They have just proven that there's so much low-hanging fruit that they just go after that. At some point, they will get more sophisticated and really go after it. But anyway, cloud architecture gives us that ability, and it gives us the ability to automate a whole bunch of IT tasks that we didn't have. It gives us the ability to do disaster recovery in a way that could potentially lower costs. I mean, there's just so much about it. I don't know about care itself. Will care itself change how we deliver it? Yes, we're going to have endpoint devices outside of the campus, and we can get closer to those devices. We could do edge computing and whatnot, but I'm not sure if that really changes health outcomes per se. But my gosh, the cloud has so much potential even today
I look at cloud as a tool stack, and what you do with that tool stack will determine the value that you deliver. And once you start moving the data into that tool stack, right? Once you have your EHR, you're doing your data analytics, you have your data lake, you have your EDW there, and you're able to have much more interoperable data that you can start interacting with and feed back to the care provider real time. That's where you start to see actual patient outcomes. You start to see 30-day readmit triggers where people are becoming aware of a higher probability of a readmit taking place before a discharge or during an ambulatory settings where there's care quality indicators that are indicating that we need to do something and take intervention early. So those are the types of things. It's not to say, hey, well, because this is computes running in the cloud, all of a sudden it's going to solve my patient care problems. It's no, because it's running in the cloud.
It gives you options. It gives you a lot more options than our traditional approaches.
Exactly.
Let me ask you about human-centered design. So going back to your UCI days and your UCSD and whatnot, I mean, human-centered design existed back then. I mean, but did we really practice that? I mean, one of the things they talk about in this article is that they believe clinicians themselves are going to drive the growth of human-centered design, really demanding that things change to avoid burnout and staffing shortages and the problems that exist. I'm curious if you felt like human-centered design was practiced back in 2013, or is this something that we're really going to start adopting here?
Yeah, so that's a great point. I think the term human-centered design has been a concept that we've progressively been adopting over the last probably 10 years in healthcare IT. I think other IT organizations are maybe a little bit further ahead. But what's happened is that we've had kind of technology lead the way in a lot of times. So especially as a highly regulated environments, right? When you get high trust and you get meaningful use and you get the government getting involved saying, hey, these are the accomplishments you need to hit and the boxes you have to check. Well, things aren't typically designed to accomplish, or they're designed to accomplish that and not necessarily something that's usable for the customer. So what we've been seeing in this space then is, like, you see the emergence of clinical informatics, right? This is a practice that barely existed 10 years ago. In IT, what you had was maybe one clinical leader or two clinical champions that participated in the IT design activities, where now you have entire groups, sometimes 15, 20, 30, 50 clinical informatics resources in healthcare IT departments that operate as kind of the advocates and the liaison between the customer and the business and the way that IT is solving solutions. So this is something that I think is a principle that we could do better in, and is probably a principle that we could just kind of normalize from a language perspective to say, hey, are we taking a human-centered design approach on this? But the level of engagement from physicians, I 100% agree. Physicians have been demanding that, and any of the care providers, and frankly, anybody in the back office too, everybody has been looking at this and saying, wait, you gave us tools to accomplish our work, but these tools give more work for us to do. And we need to redesign these tools to be more easy to use for us, and really, I guess, kind of pair the level of data gathering, things like that are needed, along with the ease of use for the end user. So I think we've been doing this for a while, and we see it in clinical informaticists.
It's interesting to me because I think it's more than just listening to the end user. I think some people will think, oh, this is just listening to the end user. I think the other thing is it's more than just hiring a physician and putting him on your product development team. Because as you've talked to one physician, you've talked to one physician. And so you're going to get a design that's based on that physician's experience, and then you're going to find another physician who's very different than that physician. This is a skill. This is an actual human-centered design, is an actual study of how to develop things around how people interact with technology. And it's something to be studied. It's something to be trained on. It's something to adapt as a culture and to really understand. And I think we have to marry this also with the fact that we are holding on to we have to work remote so vehemently, and it's hard to do human-centered design via Zoom. Not impossible. It's just harder not to be at their elbow, watching them deliver care and go, hey, you know what? It seems to me that when you're clicking on that, if that information was right there, that would help you. And if you're not in that room watching them do that, it's sometimes harder. And that's part of the discipline of actually developing the technology around the processes, not only the processes in the workflow, but again, the actual person who is utilizing it. Only because it's such a fun topic. If you haven't heard yet, we're doing webinars a little differently this year. We got your feedback. You wanted community generated topics, not vendor generated topics. You wanted great contributing panelists. Definitely not product focused, more focused on the challenges and the problems that we were facing in healthcare. We are only making these available live, so we are making them more dynamic in nature, and we're doing them on a fairly consistent time, as much as we possibly can, the first Thursday of every month. The next webinar is going to be on March 9th, which technically is not the first Thursday of every month, and I apologize for that, but I'm actually on vacation that day. So March 9th is going to be the webinar, and we're going to continue our leadership series. We're going to be talking about the changing nature of work. And a lot of things have changed. The pandemic drove us to work out of our homes. What does that mean? What does it look like? How are we making decisions? Are we making data-driven decisions on that? How are we maintaining culture? How are we hiring? Are we hiring differently? Not only that, not only focusing on IT and the roles there and the challenges there, but also on the challenges that our health systems are facing, the changing nature of work as we move into working at hospital at home and some of these other care venues. What does that look like? Addressing the staffing challenges in the clinical side as well as the administrative side. So we are looking forward to having that conversation. Love to have you join us March 9th. Keep an eye out. We're going to announce who the panelists are going to be. I currently have my feelers out for some people, but you can count on the fact that we're going to have great panelists. We're going to have a great discussion. You can sign up on our website, thisweekhealth.com, top right-hand corner. The cool thing about that is you can put your question right in there. And I give those questions to the panelists ahead of time, and we make sure we integrate that into the discussion. So sign up today. Hope to see you there. Microsoft invests billions more in OpenAI. OpenAI extends partnership. Microsoft extended their investment in OpenAI. They were one of the original, and now they are like far and away the largest investor in OpenAI. How do you read, what do you read into that? I mean, do you read Microsoft, is this akin to Bill Gates' email when he finally realized that the internet was going to be a big thing, and he sent that email out to all employees saying, stop everything you're doing. I think this internet thing is going to change our lives forever. Is this Satya sort of saying, hey, stop everything we're doing. We're going to incorporate AI into every one of our tools moving forward?
I think what this tells us is that little paper clip that shows up in Word that asks you to write something. I think what it tells us is that it's actually going to be able to write my resume for me, right? Like I'm just going to be able to tell it a few things, and all of a sudden Word is literally going to write my papers and write my stuff for me. So
it can.
Exactly. I mean, that's so when you start thinking about, okay, well, Microsoft's a technology company, they're investing in OpenAI because they're looking at the impact of ChatGPT and these other models. And you're like, okay, so what? And then you start to realize, all right, well, most word processing, most email writing, most like content production exists within their stack. So all of a sudden, if we start to get kind of superpowers and the ability for us to say, hey, we'll take the human element of what we bring to the equation, right? Maybe the ideas, and we can just pipe those into a system, and then that system produces content for us, which is basically what ChatGPT and these other large language models do. Yeah, I mean, I think that's where we're going. I think PowerPoint, even Excel, I haven't seen any models around spreadsheets yet, but I would imagine at some point that's going to come. And you could even say, format a spreadsheet for me with this type of configuration or intention in mind, and have it produce the content and formatting and formulas and things like that for you.
How we interact with software is going to fundamentally change. I mean, Satya essentially said this at Davos. He essentially said how we interact with software is going to change, and they are going to incorporate AI into just about everything they do. And what you just described really fascinates me. I mean, being able to talk to the software and say, look, I want I want a PowerPoint presentation. We're going to communicate these things. Here's the budget I'm using. Here's the things I'm using. Create for me an outline and a background that will communicate confidence, and it's healthcare related and whatnot. And this thing goes out and uses Dolly to create some images and that kind of stuff, uses ChatGPT to write some stuff. And then all of a sudden I'm sitting there with a framework, which in some cases is the hardest part. It's like, it used to be looking at a blank screen was very difficult. Well, you're not going to have to look at a blank screen for long, because you just tell it your thoughts and ideas, and all of a sudden it's going to go, is this what you're looking for? No, that's not it. Okay, how about this? And you're like, yeah, that's it.
We've started using, there's a kind of an early stage company that we've started using that is actually training models on our content internally within Optimum Healthcare IT for some of our operations, whether it's marketing or responding to RFPs or RFIs, or a lot of the things of the content production that we have internally. We've actually started integrating some of this tool set. So it's not 100% yet, but
no, but that's interesting that you say that, because one of the use cases, Will Weeder from Peace Health was over the holidays, he was playing around with it. He said, I have to write an RFP. So he went out to the thing and said, look, I have to write a section on Peace Health. And it asked it to write the section on Peace Health. And when it was done, he looked at it and he goes, that is better than anything we have. Like, it summarized their location, their primary services, it put it all in, and he just went copy, paste, and put it in the RFP.
So, I mean, and it's funny because it's actually solving both sides of the equations in a lot of situations, right? Because in this article, actually one of the other articles where it talks about authoring research papers, it's impacting academia to say, okay, well, now students are now able to use this tooling to write papers for them. And then on the other side, the teachers are like, well, if the tool writes the paper, can we not have the tool grade the paper for us as well? So I'm not sure who's learning anymore in higher education, but clearly the tools are creating the content and grading their own content, or at least that's the theory or the concern at the moment.
Well, and I think I read an article where MIT was developing something to identify whether content has been AI generated, which gets to the next, I mean, not ChatGPT or whatnot. We'll get to this specific story, but, and actually, I mean, this story might be a good example. ChatGPT listed as an author in research papers many scientists disapprove, right? So you can imagine this is a peer-reviewed study or paper that's being put out there, and they got some content from ChatGPT, so they're saying, hey, it came from ChatGPT. The problem is, right now, there's lawsuits against ChatGPT because they're saying, look, you read our content on the internet, sort of consumed it, and now you're spitting out content. Maybe it's not word for word plagiarized from us, but it's essentially, you read our entire website and now you're generating stuff on our knowledge. And it seems like there's a case to be made that there's a copyright. Now, I'm not a lawyer. Don't listen to me don't take my stuff to heart here, but it seems to be that there's a case to be made that I'll give you an example. I mean, here's the example. The example is, you know, those sites where you're programming and you go out and you ask a question and then a bunch of people answer and then stuff gets voted and you're like, oh yeah, that's the answer. Well, whenever I'm programming, I seem to be out on those sites at least once or twice going, hey, I'm trying this logic and it's not working. And then I'll look at it and I'll go, oh yeah, that makes sense. I should do that. Well, ChatGPT consumed that whole site. And so now, instead of going to those sites, what I did is I was having problems. I took the code, I put it in ChatGPT and I said, can you correct the code? And they said, sure. And it came back and corrected the code. I copied it, I put it back in, and the code worked.
Wow. That's pretty impressive. Now I've had mixed experience on the programming front with that model, because I've had times where I've asked it to produce sample code, hello world type code of specific APIs using Python, things like that. And it actually didn't run out of the gate. There was some logic, and it's like, I think one of the times it was a deprecated API, and then the other time there was a logic challenge with it. So anyways,
we're going to hear more and more of this trading of stories like, hey, this worked for me. Oh, it didn't work for me.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And every time it regenerates, like, because you say, oh, give me a sample code for this, and then regenerate it. And you're like, man, there's so many different ways to accomplish things programmatically that it literally is regenerating different ways. And sometimes maybe one of the ways it didn't work. And so maybe I should just keep regenerating until it works. But
Well, here's one of the things I've been talking to people about is we were doing summaries and stuff using, it's not ChatGPT, but it was the original. It was version 3 of whatever the OpenAI text engine was, and it would do great summaries. I would take like a transcript of our conversation and say what were the key topics from this conversation, and it would spit back. Or I'd say what's the outline, and it would spit back the outline. So we were using version 3. Version 3.5 is a lot better. But what I would tell my team is, look, you have to check it, because and we always turned to our crappy first draft. We'd go to this AI engine and say, do this. It would come back. We would correct it because our brains are still better at
for now.
Yeah, for now. 3.5 got a lot better. My team is looking at me going, hey, this is getting pretty good. And I can only imagine what 4 looks like. But I think I'm still telling people, first of all, I'm telling them to check its work. But the second thing is, it's not, I saw an article about, is this going to replace advertising? Is it going to replace fill in the blank? And I don't think we're anywhere close to that.
No, I think it's interesting. So I spent some time thinking about this in terms of the pros and cons of this and kind of its disruption and displacement and things like that, right? And what's interesting is there's a place for this, that it is going to be disruptive. There are things that are not going to be the same over the next few years because of this, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of that is like, yeah, when the car came out, the horse ride was never the same, right? And it was like, well, this was an inferior way to do it. And so a new way had come and it had disrupted the space. I think in some areas that's going to be the case. I think if Microsoft can effectively integrate it into Word and some of these other content creation platforms, I think the way we do it is really going to change. Is it going to stop? You can fire all your marketers, right? Can you fire? Are you going to all of a sudden put everybody out of work? It's like, no, that's not. Or your programmers, like that's not going to be the case. You're not going to get rid of it. And it's also good to kind of holistically think about what these models are and kind of where their knowledge comes from, right? Because have you ever heard of the term wisdom of crowds, right? It's this old Francis Galton, I think, research that he had done, and his whole concept came from the fact that he was at some farmer's fair, and the people had to, one of the things was people had to guess the weight of an ox, right? And everyone voted on how much they thought the ox was worth, and it was like 1,200 pounds or something. And some people were closer, some people were further away, but the average of like the 800 people that voted was like 1 pound off. And his was, well, the collective knowledge of ours actually is pretty accurate towards truth, or towards what is accurate out there, what the reality of something is, right? And so I think when you look at what a ChatGPT, when you say, hey, this has been trained on petabytes and exabytes of knowledge that exists out there, it's like, well, is that kind of similar to like a wiki, in the sense that this is kind of this collective knowledge of everything that's out there? And there's areas where that really works well, but then there's areas where any type of biases that we have, or systematic knowledge issues that we have, are only transposed into this tool. So I think that's where we start to see some of the challenges in its application and its implementation. Is, yeah, it's great at writing an RFP, but there's a lot of stuff where there's a human element that's absolutely still necessary.
All right, let's close on this question. So the other story was doctors get ready for your AI assistants, and this was about collecting images and using, let's see, form of AI, essentially machine learning, to look at the images and whatnot. We don't have enough time to go into this story, but here's the question I want to leave you with, because doctors are facing this, technologists are facing this, everybody's going to be facing this. When you are looking at technology that could potentially disrupt your job, what's your approach? What's your approach to get ahead of it? What's your approach to make sure that you understand it, that you can react to it, or that you can utilize it? How do you keep from framing it as that's the enemy, and make it work for you, for your career, for your organization, for the outcomes that you're trying to drive?
That is an excellent question. And I think, so one of the things that we do is we spend a lot of time with IT organization organizations that are going through like a cloud journey transformation, and they're trying to figure out, and I'm talking to DBAs and infrastructure guys and database guys, how do we look at this? Is this going to displace what I do today? Is this going to remove the necessity for my job, right? And ultimately, it always comes down to, why is it that they work, right? Why is it that they work? If there's a value in that they're providing through the energy that they're putting forth, they need to figure out how to do that in a way using new tooling is essentially it, right? We have a long history of displacement with technology. We have a long history of disruption in different industries with technology, and some jobs we don't do anymore, and other ones we've started doing. And it's helping people see the fact that technology is not the enemy. Technology is an enabler to our creative capacities and is an enabler to our ability to deliver value. And so if someone just says, hey, well, I only do this for the money and I have no other reason to do this, then they may not get on board with, or maybe that's the reason why they have to change, because they still want money, right? But especially in healthcare, there's such a consistent altruism that I've found, and people that work in healthcare, especially in IT, is that they like the positive. They like the actual benefit that they're providing to people. And so if you can explain to people how their job might change, or how their role might change, or how their inputs might change to help improve and increase the amount of value that you can put out there, you can get people's minds out of the defensive mode, and you can get it a little bit more into the creative and opportunistic mode by delivering it back to kind of that value about why they work.
Yeah, I love that. The thing I think I would say to people to answer that question, I love answering my own questions, by the way, and I love for you giving me enough time to think about my answer to this question, is define what you do, not based on technology, but define the value you bring. So are you a great problem solver? Are you a great communicator? Are you a rallier of people? Can you bring people around to solve problems or to get excited about a project and those kind of things? Are you somebody that, and if you identify your things as, I write good code, okay, that's too low level. That could potentially be replaced at someday. Yes, you should write good code. If you're paid to write good code, you should write great code. Yeah. But at the end of the day, the skills that aren't going to be replaced are one level above that. It's like, let's just take it one level above that, which is, I can identify great code. Not I write great code, I can identify great code. So now you're using ChatGPT or some other tool that's writing code, and you can say, look, I can read whatever this computer spits out, and I'll tell you what's good, what's going to cause us problems, what potentially doesn't fit into our security model. I read good code and I can identify good code. I mean, that's the next level up. But you could go a couple levels up from that and say, and start utilizing those tools and say, I've worked with the 10 tools out there that write code using AI, and I can identify the right tool for the right job to write code more efficiently for our system. It really is, first of all, identifying yourself with what you actually deliver, not your work product, but what you can actually deliver. And then I think the second thing is constantly be moving up the stack and using the tools that are, if it's cloud, start utilizing the cloud tools and say, yeah, I looked at AWS, I looked at Azure, I looked at Google's cloud, I looked at, you name it. I looked at all these different VMware's infrastructure and that kind of stuff. Here's what I've learned about these tools, and here's how we're going to implement. If you are in front of the tools, they generally aren't going to displace you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely right. It's a great answer. It always comes back to value.
Yes. What's the value that you create? Yeah. Well, Curtis, I want to thank you. This was a fun episode. We talked about a lot of fun things. I look forward to having you back on the show, probably in about 6 weeks. If you'll join me, I think it'll be fun.
Perfect. Thanks, Bill. I appreciate the time today.
Thank you. And that is the news. If I were a CIO today, I would have every one of my team members listening to a show just like this one and trying to have conversations with them after the show about what they've learned and what we can apply at our health system. If you want to support This Week Health, one of the ways you can do that is tell someone about our channels. We have 2 channels, This Week Health Conference and This Week Health Newsroom. Check them out today. You can find them wherever you listen to podcasts. And we are just about everywhere. You can find us on YouTube, Apple, Google, Overcast. You get the picture. And please subscribe on our website, thisweekhealth.com as well. We want to thank our Newsday partners, Cedars-Sinai Accelerator, ClearSense, CrowdStrike, Digital Scientist, Optimum, Pure Storage, SureTest, Tausight, and VMware, who invested in our mission to develop the next generation of health leaders. Thanks for listening. That's all for now.